All right, good morning. It's time to break down more misconceptions and truths about this entire Brock Purdy situation. The takes have been off the wall, and some of them are based on this assumption, which is an old assumption. We all know that the NFL can actually stand for not for long. So assuming things based on truths from even a year ago is a dangerous game. But a lot of the talk around Brock Purdy is based on the assumption that the 49ers have an easy situation for him, that Kyle Shanahan is the master play caller who's always going to scheme guys open, even if guys are hurt. And that even if players are hurt, the 49ers somehow have more talent to throw to than the rest of the league. Well, I'm about to completely destroy that incorrect theory. Take a look at this. Stephen Patton does a great job. I'm going to show you some of his stuff in a bit, but so does SF Data Niners. Go ahead and follow SF Data Niners. You guys know that in graphs like this, the upper right is where you want to be. Well, the 49ers are in the lower left, and that should immediately ring some alarm bells. Anyway, the x-axis is the average cushion that defenses are giving 49ers receivers. Defenses give 49ers receivers the least cushion in the league. It means there's not a lot of respect for speed and the ability of the 49ers receiving corps to truly separate. And then on the y-axis, we've got the average separation at the time of catch or incompletion. And as you can see, the 49ers are also very low here. Only the Steelers are lower. And it's very funny because who are the two teams that were vying for Brandon Aiyuk this offseason? The two top contenders were the 49ers and the Steelers. The Steelers felt that they needed somebody who could generate separation, not just for himself, but for the rest of the offense. And Aiyuk was a separation generator, especially in 2023 for the 49ers. What he did at the X position opened up other guys as well. It was a big domino effect. The fact that he missed training camp this year and then he wasn't fully in shape and wasn't himself over the first few weeks until he got hurt was extremely damaging to the 49ers offense. But the Steelers wanted 2023 Aiyuk. The 49ers wanted 2023 Aiyuk. Neither of these two teams got 2023 Aiyuk. So they're the two worst teams in terms of average separation in the NFL. Now, that's not the only reason for the separation woes. I think that there are two big ones. I think it starts with Aiyuk's hold-in. I think that's had a domino effect. But Christian McCaffrey, whereas Aiyuk might be a separation generator, Christian McCaffrey is a gravity machine. And I've talked about this a lot. It's like Steph Curry. Anytime that Christian McCaffrey's on the field, defenses are at least going to shade toward him, and that can open up other guys. That can create more separation. What another thing it does is it also creates respect. It earns respect from defenses. The fact that the cushions have been so tiny, like relative to the rest of the league for the 49ers, you go over to the other side here, there's average cushion size of over 6 yards. 49ers down near 5. That's over a yard of difference. The fact that the cushions have been so tiny has been an indication of a lack of respect from opposing defensive coordinators. So Aiyuk, Christian McCaffrey, those two guys had an outsized impact on what the 49ers are doing. So the question is Brock Purdy's job the hardest in football? And this is what Brock Purdy is dealing with from a cushion and separation point. Well, in this way, if you're looking strictly at the average windows that Brock Purdy is having to throw to, it might be. Okay, let's go further, though. Let's delve a little bit further into this, into Kyle Shanahan's play caller rating. This is what Stephen Patton does, analytics online. Play caller rating is based on a lot of different things. Steve has got a cool little formula, but a lot of it is unpredictability and different formation groups. Kyle Shanahan in the past had constantly ranked near the top of the league, at or near the top of the league in Stephen Patton's play caller rating. However, as you can see, this is defensive play callers. Sorry, I got to get the offensive play callers up for you in just a second. Here's the offensive play callers. You could see this year, Kyle Shanahan is down in the bottom half of the league. This is Kyle. I'm circling him with my cursor. That's the 49ers logo. He has a below average play caller's score based on this formula. Now, I get that some of this stuff is going to be extremely hard to quantify, but let's give Steve Patton credit for doing his best. He's at Patton Analytics on Twitter. It's interesting to me that Bobby Slowick and Sean McVay are right under Kyle Shanahan. Obviously, those are all part of the Kyle Shanahan tree. In fact, if we look at this entire ranking, the highest is Matt LaFleur, and I had previously said that Matt LaFleur was having the best year out of guys who had worked directly under Kyle Shanahan. Clint Kubiak, yeah, he's doing okay too, but Kubiak was only under Shanahan for 1 year. The main guys in the tree, Slowick and Sean McVay, down here, they're ranked well below average, and that is highly unusual because in the context of all the past seasons that we've seen. So, yes, Kyle Shanahan doesn't have his fastball this year. Neither does Sean McVay. Neither does Bobby Slowick. I think that when you run the league and the 49ers with their offensive scheme, Shanahan with his offensive scheme has for several years, it's led to the big brain drain off the 49ers coaching staff, and it's led to defensive coordinators scrambling, trying to figure out ways to stop it. Whenever that happens, the league is going to make an aggressive move to try to counteract you. And that's exactly what's happened. And now Shanahan needs to make an aggressive move to counteract what defensive coordinators are doing. That is exactly why somebody like Steve Young says that Kyle Shanahan is going to have to reinvent himself. Right now, this is what the 49ers are dealing with. The reason that I like this metric, even though I get it, it's going to be tough to quantify offensive play calling, is because Steve Patton does this every single season. And last season, Kyle Shanahan and in seasons prior was near the top. So the fact that the 49ers have now found themselves with Shanahan in the bottom half of the league, I think is definitely something that we need to pay attention to. Now, what's really interesting to me, and this is on a league-wide basis, look at who the top two play callers are. Todd Monken and Joe Brady, the Ravens and the Bills, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, respectively. So the two leaders in the MVP race have the two highest-rated play callers in the NFL. That is not a coincidence. Anybody who writes, this quarterback can't take over games himself, does not know what they're talking about. The quarterback always, throughout the entire history of football, has had to work with the play caller. Joe Montana had Bill Walsh. Steve Young had Mike Shanahan. He had Mike Holmgren, then he had Mike Shanahan after that, the two Mikes. There is not an example of a quarterback anywhere that has been successful without a system that has been good for him. Like, football is a team sport, so by definition, it is a system sport. And this year, the 49ers, according to this metric, along with the rest of the Shanahan tree, are not really enjoying the system support. Brock Purdy specifically isn't, that he has in the past, whereas Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen up here are. Now, we can combine all of these things. We can combine the 49ers separation woes. We can combine the play caller rating. And we can talk about the stylistic impact on the 49ers offense. That they've gone from number 1 to number 32 in yards after the catch. They've gone all the way to the bottom of the league from like number 11, so 11 to 31 or 32 in average separation at the time of catch. That, of course, is illustrated by this chart right here. They, this season, have increased Brock Purdy's time to throw has increased significantly, and that's probably because guys aren't open. He's taken the longest to throw, or he was for a few weeks. I think it's number 2 or number 3 in the NFL now, after being a fairly quick release quarterback in the past. And they've done this all despite the, all this has happened despite the fact that the pass protection has actually been a little bit better this season. I'm not going to say that the pass protection has been perfect for the 49ers or that it doesn't need improvement. I think it really does at center and left guard, but the right side was such a disaster in 2023. So the fact that they've improved that right side with Dominic Pooney and Colton McKivitz getting better is very, very important. So anyway, the 49ers, with their separation woes, with their play caller rating being lower, with all of the stylistic defects of this offense and yak and in separation. Despite all of that, Brock Purdy has remained in the top 10 of QBR. He was number one last season, and we know that football is a team sport. It's going to be highly dependent on what's going on around you. He's still in the top 10. He's number 10 this season at QBR. He has vacillated between, he started the season much higher. I think that the Seattle game where he hurt his shoulder, that's been an inflection point. It's really hard to tell if the shoulder has still been an issue because they've played a lot of weather games since then at Buffalo and then at home against the Rams. And then they played the Bears in a game where the Bears had lost their defensive play caller, Matt Eberflus, because they fired him. He was the head coach that also called the defense. And that was the one good performance for the 49ers ever since the Tampa Bay game for Brock Purdy. So anyway, the aggregate still says top 10 QBR for Purdy. And now he's going to get to face the Dolphins. That was the first team that he played against when he started his career back in 2022. I know he had garbage time against the Chiefs, but the Dolphins game was when Purdy entered for the injured Jimmy Garoppolo and completely tore it up. Still remember Jalen Phillips coming on the blitz. Brock Purdy, third down, blind throw, hit George Kittle. And at that moment, the 49ers started sensing that, okay, this guy can handle the moment. Anyway, he's got the Dolphins. He's got a beaten up Lions defense that will be coming to Levi's Stadium. And then he's got Arizona. Doesn't have a great defense. So the next 3 weeks, I think, are an opportunity for Brock Purdy and this 49ers offense that obviously has not been firing the way that they wanted to fire for the multitude of reasons that I just illustrated. But you can make the case, especially when you see the separation numbers, that Brock Purdy's job has been the hardest in football. And back to what I said at the start, there are so many misinformed takes. They're based on stereotypes. And one of the stereotypes is, oh, well, Kyle Shanahan is a genius and he never does anything wrong. And the 49ers have the Avengers, so everything is always laid on a platter for Brock Purdy. And that couldn't be the furthest from the truth. Kyle Shanahan is human. Kyle Shanahan is an NFL coach. And just like all human NFL coaches, he has to fight through the ebbs and flows of one of the most difficult professions in professional sports. So there's going to be, the guys on the other side are geniuses too. This is the best of the best in all facets of the game, coaching, players, etc. Defensive coordinators in the league are going to try to get a step ahead of you. I think they've been a step ahead of the 49ers this season. I think it's helped them that the 49ers have had so many injuries this season, which have caused a lot of the separation woes. But I think some of the separation woes are also a factor of play calling. And I think that all of this combines to create a very, very difficult job for Brock Purdy. And yesterday I showed you that Purdy's catchable ball rate and pressure to sack ratio are actually both better this season than last. So, the big question after seeing something like that, it's like, holy crap, how are those two metrics? How is he throwing a higher rate of catchable footballs? And how is his pressure to sack rate actually better this year than last year, even though the aggregate performance is less efficient? Well, the answer to your question probably lies in a graph like this. So as we talk about what Purdy needs to do to regain that top 5 efficiency, as we talk about the 49ers contractual situation with Brock Purdy, that's obviously going to be negotiated this offseason, maybe even early this offseason. Both of those things need to be framed within the context of what is Purdy doing individually versus what is the team doing around him. And I think that, when you ask the question, is Brock Purdy's job the hardest in football? Well, during the horrific Kansas City game, it definitely was. Think about that. I think that game might have been symbolic of the accumulation of problems that have hit the 49ers this season. Entering the game against Kansas City, the 49ers thought they'd have Brandon Aiyuk, and they thought they'd have Deebo Samuel. Obviously, they didn't have Christian McCaffrey. That's a big loss. They also lost Juwan Jennings the game before against the Seattle Seahawks. So the top 3 eligibles for that game were going to be Aiyuk, Samuel, and George Kittle. That was also Ricky Pearsall's return from getting shot that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, Deebo Samuel came down with pneumonia. He had to be hospitalized later that night, so he basically wasn't able to play. So they game planned all week with Deebo Samuel in there. No Deebo Samuel for the 49ers against the Chiefs. And then Brandon Aiyuk dropped a very key pass, a dime from Brock Purdy on third down that might have even been a touchdown. I think it could have changed the game. Shortly thereafter, Brandon Aiyuk tore his ACL. So Brandon Aiyuk wasn't available either for the 49ers. So take inventory here. No Aiyuk, no Samuel, even though he had planned for it. The only eligible out of your Avengers that was available was George Kittle, because Christian McCaffrey and Jawan Jennings were also on the shelf. But on the fly, the 49ers, even after game planning with them, lost two of their key weapons. And then Steve Spagnuolo, who's obviously one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, got to work against Purdy and company. And the 49ers still almost strained their way to, I mean, they had a chance. The 49ers had a chance entering the fourth quarter of that game. They were straining, but it was a situation where, no, they were not able to get the separation they needed. And I think that it was emblematic of how difficult things have been this season. So this is just the objective look, the actual under the hood look of the 49ers offense. So many people are going to be stupid about this. We've already seen it. So many people are going to be simplistic about this. They're going to just talk about one player playing better or playing worse, and they're not going to respect the game. And to respect the game, you look at the fact that it is a team sport. You look to see what individual pieces can do to make the collective better. You don't just look at one guy and say, this is going to determine everything for a team. You look at how all the pieces work together, and the 49ers have not had all the pieces working together for them this season. All right, quick 49ers update. I'm going to be headed down to the facility today. The 49ers practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. On Friday after practice, they fly to Miami. Practice is a little bit earlier than usual this week because they will be headed to the Eastern time zone. I'm guessing the weather should be good in Miami. December is a very pleasant time of the year to visit. Actually, not as much rain there as there is in the summer. This game is going to be played at Hard Rock Stadium, which is where the 49ers won their most recent Super Bowl. They've actually won 2 Super Bowls there. And of course, they lost the first Super Bowl, Super Bowl 54, to Kansas City there. That was in February of 2020. But this time it won't be the Chiefs. It's going to be the Miami Dolphins. Supposedly Tyreek Hill might be causing some drama right now. Mike said, Tyreek Hill just tweeted, "It's time for me to go, coach." Whatever that means. We'll see if Tyreek is unhappy when we get to Miami this weekend. But it's Mike McDaniel on the other side. And, you know, we talk about play caller rating. We should look to see where Mike McDaniel is here too. Look at this. Mike McDaniel is in the bottom half. So McDaniel, Shanahan, Slowick, McVay, bottom half. Guys, Kubiak, who was under Shanahan for 1 year, he's with the Saints now. He's a little bit above average, not too much. And the best out of that tree right now has been Matt LaFleur with the Packers this year. LaFleur seems to be the one whose team is improving as this season goes along. They look to be like a true contender, while the rest of those teams don't really look like true contenders. I think the Rams might win the NFC West, but I don't think they're going to go very far in the playoffs. Look at the very top of this, though. It is the MVP candidates, the 2 serious ones, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. They've got 2 of the best play callers in the game. And I do not think that is a coincidence. So take this all for what it's worth. And we can go through some of the methodology later. I've been talking with Patent Analytics about this. And one of the answers he gave me was a lot of this is based on formational diversity. So that's drawing board kind of stuff. You sit down in the off season, maybe some of the 49ers bunched formations. Maybe the league is figuring that kind of stuff out. Maybe they're going to need to spread things out a little bit formationally, add some speed to the outside receiver positions. Ricky Pearsall is a fast guy. He's going to get further integrated. But I think that there's a reason why the 49ers paid Brandon Aiyuk the money that they did. He was Purdy's top receiver in 2023. His separation scores were absolutely awesome for the 49ers. And without him, There's a reason why they're down right here at the moment. And, this is unlikely to change in a big way over the course of this season. There are only 3 games left, and the 49ers' worst separating game was against the Rams, who didn't have a good secondary. They posted their lowest figure of the year, 2.5 yards of average separation at the time of catch or incompletion against the Rams. So that just goes to show you that Brock Purdy is going to be thrown into narrow windows. He's going to have to be extremely accurate. He's going to have to buy time for guys to get open. Mike pointed it out to me, and I agree with him. That game against the Bears, guys were roaming free against the Bears, but that's been a rare sight for Brock Purdy and the 49ers this year. So this is all something that you consider when you want to assess Brock Purdy's importance to the 49ers. The fact that he's a top 10 QBR, despite the fact that it is a complete mess around him, is very, very significant in larger scale team construction. Speaking of larger scale team construction, let's get that depth chart up on the screen. 49ers added a couple players yesterday to the practice squad. Over here, Austin Pleasance. We'll see today if Jalen Moore practices or if Trent Williams might be inching his way back. But if not, Austin Pleasance might be in line for a significant role. Obviously, they got Sebastian Gutierrez and Colton McKivett still healthy. Gutierrez is a sixth man type of offensive lineman at this point. But Moore did miss practice, the bonus practice on Monday. And they also added Chandler Wooten to the practice squad after suspending Devondre Campbell. Campbell's locker all cleaned out. They probably had some staff do that. I don't know if Devondre Campbell just drove away from the stadium the other night or what, but his locker and stuff was still in it. Well, it was still there when I was in the locker room on Thursday after the game. But since the 49ers have taken the nameplate off and everything. So Chandler Wooten has now joined the team, undrafted free agent linebacker from a year or two back. And he's at least going to be helping the 49ers out in practice. I think everybody should take this opportunity to sign up for a membership at the San Francisco Standard. It's going to be sfstandard.com/memberships. And there are going to be events with me. If you want to meet Tim Kawakami, you can too. Free month of Fitness SF. You got some merchandise with it. But most importantly, you're going to be able to see all of our very in-depth articles. I have a Brock Purdy contract projection that I'm working on that I hope is very interesting to all of you. I think Tim wrote something about that today. So if you go to sfstandard.com/membership, you can go ahead and check that out. Today, I'm writing about the 49ers defensive line and how they're going to construct that for the 2025 season. And I do think that all of this could be very, very worth it for you if you sign up right now for the San Francisco Standard membership, because this offseason, which feels like it's already started, is going to be very, very busy. Yesterday, Kirk Cousins was benched by the Atlanta Falcons. The reason that he was benched, QBR number 22. I'm now bracing myself. I don't know if it's already started because I was working out early this morning. I haven't really been online, but the Kirk Cousins trade talk is definitely going to affect the 49ers ecosystem. Yesterday, I did a team building discussion where I explained that, Cousins, even if you traded for him, would cost $27.5 million for the acquiring team. The 49ers, despite all the good stuff that Brock Purdy has done for them, despite the fact that he is going to sign a deal that is near the top of the quarterback market, maybe at the top of the quarterback market, that's something that might only cost them about in the $10 million range on the 2025 cap because of the way that they prorate bonuses in their deals. So there is a very big inherent benefit to re-signing your own guys, structuring your own contracts, not having to trade for outside veterans, outside of the fact that Brock Purdy is in his young 20s and Kirk Cousins is 36 and obviously not so good coming off of an Achilles injury. Every single day, there are going to be ridiculous takes about this 49ers quarterback situation. So if you just want the truth, you can go ahead and come back here. We'll be dealing in the truth. We'll be talking about context. We'll be talking about the 49ers' very poor separation score. We're not afraid to point out that Kyle Shanahan has not been at his best this year. We're not afraid to talk about the 49ers' injuries and all of the tough things that have happened to this football team this season. And it's all combined to make Brock Purdy's job one of the hardest in football, which, if you follow the stereotypes, might blow your mind. But if you follow the truth, well, that is what the evidence shows us. All right, I'm headed down to Santa Clara. I'll give you the 49ers update in a little bit.